First question we ask everyone that comes on the podcast here: what one piece of advice would you give someone that's trying to be 1% better every day?
I think checking in on yourself every day, like throughout the day. So not just looking and checking in yourself at the end of the day. Let's actually do it every couple of hours to see where you're actually sitting at throughout the day. Checking your thoughts, your feelings, and your behaviours, and whether that's aligned with who you actually want to be.
Yeah, right. So and obviously, yeah, not just mentally, emotionally, physically, but basically everything. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Just that whole picture. So I actually run an app. I've got an app that I use that actually reminds me in the phone every couple of hours just to check in on myself. Take 5 minutes just to, just do a body check, just body scan, just see how you're feeling, whether the anxiety's up or whether the depression's in there or just the body's feeling really good, and you've had a really good morning or a good afternoon. Really just actually focus on your body. And if you're not feeling that great, like if you're not behaving the way that you would or whatever, is actually just taking that little bit extra time and just doing a little bit of a meditation or, the hippie side of things, whatever, everyone sort of says the hippie stuff, but just taking 10 minutes to actually just do a bit of breathing or just focus back on your body and really just, reset yourself and go again.
Yeah, sweet.
Awesome. So just very quickly for everyone, stats. Just give us quickly your name, sort of what you do for a crust, and I guess then we'll sort of dive into a little bit of your history.
Yeah, so Toby Mahoney, I own Urban Money, which is a finance broking business in Launceston, but we lend wherever we can, so within Australia. Was that it? Was the other questions? There was too many in there, mate. My mind just gone.
Mate, that's it. So I guess going into the next sort of steps or the next question that we're going to have for you is tell us a little bit about your history with mental health. I know we sort of spoke a little bit about it before we started, but just for those, if you could give a little bit of backstory as to maybe sort of some of your experiences with mental health in the past.
Mid-July last year, I had a full breakdown coming home from camping. Spending some time with the two boys and my wife, and got home and thought, oh my God, over the last 8 years of business, I've actually missed out on so much of my kids' life because I've been so focused on work and building up the business that we've got. Just the whole, the stresses of it as well, that really sort of pushed me over that edge. Had a breakdown and, crying uncontrollably, not being able to breathe properly, just somehow made it inside, climbed in the shower and sort of was temporarily paralysed while I was in the shower for about an hour. Sorry for the, waste of water, but it was, it wasn't a very pleasant experience, obviously. But, eventually got out of the shower and, I've been lucky, I think, since that moment that I've had such a supportive wife and kids and family like my parents. The day that happened, my dad jumped on a plane and was over here the breakdown happened about 11 o'clock and Dad was over here by about 4:30. So, it was a really emotional day, but it was, it was great. It shows just how much support really means to you in those moments.
And that sounds super, really heavy, mate, and thank you very much for sharing. How has that recovery journey sort of looked for you? Like, how long ago roughly was that? And I guess, how has it looked from there? It was really difficult to start off with, not having the right doctors in place and actually having the right qualified support there for the first couple of weeks. Was lucky we had a really close friend that, that got me onto a doctor that was, that was specialises in mental health and he was able to sort of help and support me through that and getting a referral through to a psychiatrist and getting in to see them. Like I think it was within 2.5 weeks I was in to see the psychiatrist. Whereas I know that wait times now are, 6 months and all that sort of thing. So really lucky with that support to get me in. I had end up having 3 weeks in hospital.
was diagnosed with severe depression and severe anxiety, and also ADHD as well. So, it's not been something that has been really prevalent in society. I think, up until sort of recently, we were only starting to talk about the ADHD side of things more, because it was always an ADHD kid or an ADD kid was a naughty boy. Well,
Looking out the window.
Why is that one climbing the roof?
It's just that. Yeah. Why is he riding the bike on the roof? That sort of thing. But I know when I was, I went to school at Ulverston High, and we had a room 60 was where the kids, the naughty kids went. So anyone with ADHD and that were actually in that room. So I wasn't one of those kids. So it was well hidden from everyone, I guess, because the knowledge and understanding of it wasn't there.
And I guess the stigma for us as well. So I'm also an Ulvie High kid, and no, obviously room 60.
Yeah.
So for those from Ulverston, you'll have a good old chuckle when. Anyway, we shouldn't have a laugh, but I guess the stigma there is really. You've seen those kids that were struggling, and particularly with ADD, ADHD and whatnot, and it was very much known as that sort of the naughty kid, the naughty kid sort of syndrome, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's, and realistically, for me, it comes down to, for me managing it, it's come down to structure for me. So, I've got to have structure in my life, otherwise, the ADHD part of in me plays up. I don't do naughty things, but it just
You lose focus and get sidetracked.
I seen a sign that said, what was it? ACDC highway to, oh look, a squirrel. So so pretty much describes my life, and from the ADHD side of things, for me, it's like having 1,000 TV channels in my head without a remote was what it was like, until I sort of got to speak to a psychiatrist and counsellor, and all the support networks that we've got outside of the family, day therapy and stuff as well. That and medication, which is obviously a part of the whole recovery process, but only a small part. You actually get that remote back, and whilst all those 1,000 channels are there, it actually just turns them down. It's just gives me the ability to really focus on what I'm doing.
Probably gives you the user manual for the TV to know what the buttons do.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, so it's pretty it's pretty fascinating. I've learnt so much over the course of the last 8 months since the breakdown, about me, about family, and really how powerful but lazy our brain is. It really is. It struggles to tell the difference between a positive and negative thought. It stores them all in the same place. It's just so brutal, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And not to completely change, but to bounce back to before the breakdown rather than after. So quick disclaimer, Toby is my cousin. I'm his cousin. Well,
you're the
same deal. I'm the younger one.
You're the younger one. I'm the better looking
regardless.
one, but you're the younger one.
It does go both ways.
So you said about this sort of the cause maybe being potentially overwork, and we've spoken about this in our previous podcast, was just people are just cooked and they're just done. Now I've watched as you built that business and done such a really good job of it, but you were putting so much into it. And, do you think that's something you look back on now and that's caused that breakdown maybe solely, or do you think there's a lot of other?
Look, I think there's other factors. I think having the undiagnosed ADHD, I think no matter what, the breakdown would have happened at some point. So because it wasn't managed, and I think, at the time my doctors were sort of, I'll go in and say I'm not feeling okay or whatever, they might just throw another set of pills at me or increase my dose or whatever. So I think the breakdown was going to happen at some point. I think it was probably just exacerbated and brought forward because of that stress, and the working, 80 hours a week or whatever to actually make sure that the business got to where it is now. But, we try to, it's hard to go back and go and pinpoint exactly one specific thing. I think, when you look back on it, and we sort of haven't really sort of talked a lot to Mum about it, sort of growing up and that sort of thing. But I know she's sort of mentioned a couple of things, and I think, the impact on all of this on them, where, when your loved ones, I think there's a bit of guilt there to not pick up on it.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. And there's no blame in any of this. Like, there's no blame. There's no, it's their fault or it's my fault or whatever. And I think that's the big thing. Like, I didn't know. My wife of 10 years didn't know that I had it. So I think, like really just actually getting to know that process now and be able to share my knowledge of all of those, I call it the triple threat. So what I've got, severe depression, anxiety, and ADHD, and it's both. So I have hyperactive and well. I've got both sides of it. So it's it can be very challenging to manage because you're not sure which side of the ADHD is going to play up on. But I think really it's it's no one to blame. It's no one, no one thing that's actually really, to be able to pinpoint it. It's happened. It is what it is. I don't think I'd be where I am today if it was diagnosed or it was picked up before I started the business. I think the ADHD, certainly at that point, because it gives me that hyper focus, really pushed me to the limits. Unfortunately, it just sort of because I wasn't looking after myself at the end of the day, and that's why I mentioned about the check-ins and that sort of thing. That's why I really sort of that part of it for me, I wasn't doing that, and that sort of stopped.
How much did you do around like the training of yourself within those check-ins? Like you sort of see and hear about the check-ins, but what specifically is a check-in for you? How would you?
So
if
I'm, my first check-in is as soon as I get up. So I get up at 6 o'clock every morning, maybe not on the weekends, but, like my first thing that I do is get up, make myself a cup of tea, and I'll go to a quiet place in the house. The kids know not to interrupt me or anything like that. So, and I'll go and spend half hour in there. I'll have my cup of tea. I'll generally do a progressive muscle relaxation guided meditation. So that, so that's when I'm doing a full body scan. I'm doing tensing my muscles and releasing them and noticing, really feeling the difference between the two. So, and then within the app that I'm using and the question, I've got a couple of questions in there just to sort of do a check-in on how I'm feeling. So I rate myself between 1 to 10 and if I'm at 5, reflect on that. So not remunerate, but that's the money talk. Ruminate on it and actually go, really pinpoint it and then just keep thinking it over and over again. It's really just a quick reflect on why it's there. Try and catch it, check it and chuck it. If it's a bad thought, but then just throughout the day again, it's really, I'll take a moment and go, okay, well, how am I feeling in my body? Am I feeling tense? How's my anxiety? How's my heart rate? How's the rest of my body feeling? Do my legs feel tense, or am I feeling hunched over, or am I just feeling depressed, or so it's really just that full scan of like, how's my behaviors? Like, how am I talking to people? Just that whole thing is really, and then going, right, okay, well, that interaction didn't go well. Do a quick reflection of it. Because at the end of the day, if you keep thinking about it, it's going to make the end of your day worse as well. So, and if you've got to take an extra 10 minutes, then you take that 10 minutes. I think it's important to make that time to do it.
Definitely. You mentioned it a couple of times and I've got a couple of questions, but the first one just for people is what app are you using specifically? Because it's obviously been a huge benefit to you, so I'm assuming it could be a benefit to others.
Yeah, look, I think I downloaded about 120 of them. So that's my ADHD. Like, I'd start it, I'd look at it and go, no, that's not working for me. And I think it's really, not the way that I do it's going to be completely different to how someone else does it. So I've got an app at the minute that's called Custom Journal. where you can actually just create your journal and put in those couple of reminders in there as well. I think it was $21 or something like that. I'm not a fan of paying for apps, so like a lot of the ones that people are talking about that are really good and that they cost you $100 a year or whatever. I shouldn't put money on, I shouldn't put a price on mental health.
Yeah.
But I also think, why should I pay that sort of amount when I don't really know whether the full functions are going to work and be good for me? So, so I think part of that process, I've built in a couple of different things to it, and utilising my other calendar and that sort of thing as well. But yeah, custom journal. If you just Google it, it comes up, and yes, and you can actually set it up how you want it. So you can put in there. I think looking back at mine, it's got a to-do list in it, all on the one page. It's got a to-do list. It's got a habits list. And then you can set it up, as I said, you can do your check-ins in there. So 1 to 5, 1 to 10, whatever you want to do. You can make notes in there, and there's a few different cool features in it.
Yeah,
well.
no, it's really interesting because the way that you're talking about sort of all your check-ins and that kind of stuff, I assumed you were using something like Calm or one of those other kind of paid-for apps. But it's really good to hear that you're doing journaling, because journaling is something that sort of I won't say I've done, but dabbled in. I like the idea. I used a program called Evernote to sort of do a sort of similar kind of thing, and it is really cool. The other question that I had was around support. You've mentioned that a couple of times, and particularly around family support and how important that's been for you during this sort of recovery process. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I think the whole support network is, it's just been amazing. The impact that it's had on me, but more so, when you look at it, the impact that it's actually had on my wife and my 2 boys, that's been pretty raw. That was really tough to actually look back at it and go, well, my God, I've put them through all of this and the breakdown and the 3 weeks not being at home. And the first week in hospital, I was absolutely out of it, like change of medications and everything like that. I can't even remember the first week. So apparently I was not a real nice bloke on the phone to my wife a couple of times and, that sort of thing, because and for her, so every now and then she'll say, I've just got to remember that moment, and in that time, that wasn't you. Like, there was issues there and that wasn't you, and it's really difficult to sort of hear that. But I think, we've both come out of this, and as a family, we've come out of it stronger, because this has given us the ability to be able to communicate better, because we know what the issues and that are. If I'm not having a really good day or a really good couple of hours or whatever, she'll question me whether I'm having a good day or not, or a good time. Like, she's just been my rock throughout that process. And my kids always make me laugh, even though they make me angry sometimes. They still make me laugh. I think whose kid doesn't? But and then obviously mum and dad, my brothers, my close friends. Reese has been all right. But I think it's. When I first got out, I really wanted to tell everyone my story, and I think that had an impact on me as well. That it was like, really valuing myself and going, well, not everyone needs to actually hear my story. There's people out there that don't deserve it. I think, we talk about stigmas and all that sort of stuff. When I was in hospital, there was rumours spread around about me and stuff, not very nice ones, but, and it's all, it was all to do with, the mental health side of things. And I think, if I had been in there for cancer, that sort of thing wouldn't have happened. And I think that that's really, that's just, I just don't get it. Like, I just, all my therapies and all that sort of stuff, so I've got, as I said, wife, kids and that, but, I've got a counsellor, I've got a psychiatrist, I do weekly day therapy at Calvary. My staff have been amazing throughout the whole process as well, they've between them and Jacqueline. They they've all stepped up to really run the business when I've been at the forefront of that for 8 years and taken a step back from that and was it was forced upon me. I knew I had to, but it was really forced upon me. And that's wouldn't be where I am right now without any of that support network.
Thanks, man. That's an amazing message. While I've got you, and I don't mean to segue, but trying to keep in line with the sort of our 30-minute episodes.
Yeah.
Finances.
Yep.
It's massive on the it's massive in the news at the moment. It's massive with the whole interest rate stuff. And while I've got an expert in the room,
where?
I thought I'd just sort of touch on this around mental health. Like we had a bit of a yak about this at the beginning. Talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing from the mental health side, perhaps from your industry, and what kind of feedback you might have.
Yeah, look, I guess there's two parts to that. There's probably the mental health side of things for us as brokers. It's pretty brutal at the minute. You're dealing with banks. So that's bad enough in itself. But then, you've got the pressures of the customer. So you sort of become that middleman and really about that management of it. And obviously at the moment it is can be you're having some really hard conversations with customers because of the interest rate increases and the affordabilities around it and all that sort of thing. So that in itself, is pretty brutal from a broker point of view. But from a customer point of view, it's just I feel so sorry for them. With the Reserve Bank governor coming out and going, hey, we're going to keep interest rates this low for the next 3 years. And then next minute, we've gone up 3.35%. That's just absolutely crazy. He should never have even commented around that side of things. The banks obviously are doing their part and coming out and making billions of dollars still and all that sort of stuff. And that hits hard, even for me, for me as a broker, but, it hits hard for the consumer as well to go, well, why are they making so much money? They're not really thinking about me as the customer. They're thinking about the profit and the shareholders. It's just I find it really difficult at the minute just to actually to find the right answers for people in terms of where rates are going to go and that sort of thing. But a lot of it is around education. I think education is key certainly going forward. I think the government needs to do, state and federal government needs to do more about financial literacy within schools, certainly, at primary school level and at a high school level. The high school level really needs to be talking about what loans are, what payday lenders are, that sort of thing. Even talking about paying taxes and all that sort of thing. I think that needs to be discussed and actually worked on. And then that whole transaction of, they're going out there and saying, hey, you can buy a house with a 2% deposit. But then they're not taking into consideration, the government saying 2%. And it's like, well, hang on a minute. We've got to pay stamp duties. You've got to pay solicitors' fees and all this sort of stuff. So it's not 2%.
Yeah, we were stitched up with that in WA when we built our house. It was the same sort of deal, 2%. But by the time we moved into our house, our mortgage was like 15 grand more because of interest that we weren't paying enough to cover the interest. So all of a sudden, we'd lost more than 15 grand because we've got to pay the interest back on that as well. So
so it really it depends on the schemes and stuff. And I think that's why it's important to have someone with you that knows what they're doing and happy to pick up the phone or meet and discuss or go through the contracts properly instead of just being emailed a contract and saying, hey, here's sign this. Especially if it's your first home, you don't know what you're doing. You need someone to hold your hand to go through that process. That's done it thousands of times. To make that process a bit easier.
And we'll link to Toby's business in the product, the YouTube, the description. Yep. So if you want to reach out to Toby and have a chat about finances and that kind of stuff, I'm sure he'll be happy to have a bit of a chat and see how maybe he might be able to help. The last question that we ask everyone on the podcast is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to 20-year-old Toby?
That's about 20 years ago now, nearly.
Doesn't look it.
Let's go 20-year-old Toby and then 30-year-old Toby.
Oh, geez. Don't spend so much time with Reese. That would be probably one. No. I don't know, really. Like I've thought about this a lot, and I think it's really probably continue to work on myself. Like it's, looking back, it was seen selfish to really be who you want to be and actually spend time doing what you want to do. And if it meant taking 5 minutes away from everyone, do it. Like just really take that time to actually make sure that I was okay, not making sure that everyone else was okay. I think that's probably the biggest advice. Even at 30, I'm still doing the same thing. You don't need to be a people pleaser. You get out there, you do something, you do what you want to do. I think that's, and then, at the end of the day, if you're not healthy or you're not mentally healthy, you can't be there for anyone else. And I think that's probably the big, reflection of that all is, I could have done that better.
Thanks so much, man. Really great message. If there's been anything triggering for anyone else listening to the podcast, I'd encourage anyone to call Lifeline on 13 11 14. And other than that,
I'm just going to jump in here. Just for other business owners and stuff out there as well, Lifeline have actually got a really great program. It's called Minding Your Business. So it's an employee assistant program that actually is there for so obviously small business can't afford to pay for counselling sessions for their staff and all that sort of thing, but Lifeline actually it's a state government funded thing, but it actually allows them to it allows you to actually offer that program within your small business. So I think that's a good opportunity for businesses out there as well.
Awesome. Good call, man.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
No,
Thanks for coming on.
Thank you.
Maybe we'll have you on again down the track sort of to talk a little bit more about money and a little bit more about your sort of healing journey. But cheers, mate. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.